Will AI ever truly understand art the way that humans do? In this video, I'll reveal the fundamental gap between artificial intelligence and human creativity most tech enthusiasts overlook. You'll discover why the meaning behind creativity isn't just in the finished product, but in the uncertain space where artists found their vision. We're going to explore what it will take to create an artificial general intelligence that can genuinely produce art. This video will completely change how you think about the relationship between technology and human expression.
In our quest to understand the nature of the mind itself, we find ourselves at a remarkable threshold. Welcome to Deep Thoughts, where we examine the fundamental patterns of how humans think, learn, and perceive. Our computational tools have begun to mirror aspects of our own cognition. Yet creating true artificial general intelligence requires understanding the deeper principles that guide human thought. I'm Evan Goldstein, a licensed engineer and data scientist, and I invite you to join me on this journey into the very essence of what makes us think.
I remember this one afternoon when I was maybe 11 or 12, sitting cross-legged on the hardwood floor of my grandmother's studio. The whole room smelled like linseed oil and turpentine. That distinctive scent still, to this very day, takes me right back to childhood. She was working on this massive canvas, probably 5 feet tall, with huge multicolored sails flapping in the breeze. She asked me what I think it meant, and she was stepping her head back and tilting her head at the canvas. And I shrugged. I don't know, an adventure? Everyone sees something different, and that's the beauty of it. When I was older, I would sometimes head back to attend her gallery openings, and the place would be full of art critics in turtlenecks, all of them analyzing and dissecting her paintings like they were performing surgery. I could overhear one guy with a goatee explain to his friend how my grandmother's use of negative space was clearly a commentary on the post-capitalist emptiness of modern America. When I mentioned this to my grandmother later that night, she just said that half the time, I'm just trying to make something that feels right. Sometimes I don't even know what it means until someone tells me. There's this gap between what artists create and how others interpret their work. This space where meaning shifts and transforms. It makes me wonder, as we develop increasingly sophisticated AI systems that can generate art, music, and writing, will they ever understand the meaning that's behind what they're creating? Or will they be like that critic confidently explaining intentions that were never there? Creating art is hard. It's so hard that sometimes I daydream about finding an AI that could be my perfect creative partner. You know what I mean? Like having a collaborator who really gets your vision, who could help you bring your ideas to life without all the back and forth frustration. The possibilities would be endless. And it's not completely far-fetched. We already have tools that can generate images or suggest melodies. But here's the thing. There's always a catch. Think about what happens when you try to explain your creative vision to this AI partner. These might be the kinds of requests you'd make. I want to write a song about that feeling when you're driving alone at night. Help me create a painting that captures the relationship between my grandmother and me. Or I need a story that explores the concept of belonging without being too on the nose. Some parts of these requests seem straightforward. Song, painting, story, but the rest not so much. What exactly is that feeling when driving alone at night? What aspects of your relationship with your grandmother matter the most to you? What does belonging mean to you? And what would make something feel too on the nose? For your AI partner to actually help you, it would need to understand what you meant by these deeply personal concepts. Does that feeling mean freedom, loneliness, contemplation, or something else entirely? Is your relationship with your grandmother characterized by wisdom, complicated history, unspoken love? The AI needs to grasp what you're really trying to express, or it won't know where to begin or when it's actually captured your vision. You probably get the gist of those requests without breaking a sweat. But have you ever thought about how you pick that up? As a kid, it wouldn't have made sense for your parents and teachers to just shove you in front of big blocks of text and expect you to learn everything by staring at them for hours. A way that makes more sense is learning bit by bit. You figure out what one word means, and then that helps you grasp new words down the line. And if you feel that you're getting value from this episode, I would appreciate it if you would push the like. Pressing like lets me know that I'm making content you want to see, and it spreads that content to others. Help us break AI capitalists out of small channel hell. Let's check out an example where you can figure out the meaning of something fresh and unfamiliar. Dancers and spies tend to be ineffable. Even if you don't know exactly what ineffable means, you can probably make a pretty good guess, right? I mean, think about it. What do dancers and spies have in common? There's something about them that's hard to put into words. Something mysterious and just beyond description. And it's funny how our brains work like that. We can connect the dots even when we don't have all the information. It's like the first time I heard a word I'd never heard before to describe my aunt's cooking, transcendent. But I totally got what she meant from the way that she closed her eyes when she said it, and how she was practically licking her plate clean. Every word has this specific feeling attached to it. Like melody feels so different from the word tune, which feels nothing like the word song. This feeling is what makes metaphors hit so hard. When my kid said she was drowning in assignments, I knew she wasn't literally underwater, but that specific overwhelmed feeling was coming through crystal clear. It's why I can't just swap words, even when they technically mean the exact same thing. Think about it. If I tell you that a painter is a visionary, you get the sense of someone who sees beyond what's possible, who's creating something revolutionary. But if I say that painter is a dreamer, suddenly you're picturing someone whose ideas might never touch the ground, who lives in their head. The same general concept, but totally different emotional fingerprints. Words aren't just dictionary definitions, they're little packets of feeling. When we talk about what makes something mean something, it's so much deeper than what you'd find in a dictionary. This whole feeling that doesn't always describe need words or pictures or anything else like that. Sometimes it's straight up defining things. A melody is a sequence of notes that makes recognizable patterns. Sometimes it's through examples. Courage is when your little sister sings at the talent show, even though her voice is shaking. Sometimes it's through actions. You understood what dedication meant when you watched your neighbor get up at 5 a.m. every day for 20 years to pursue painting before heading to their day job. This is why it can be so hard to explain certain things to people sometimes. The meaning isn't just in the words, it's all in this shared understanding that we build together. In this realm of shared understanding lies one of humanity's most remarkable capacities. Our ability to transmit not just information, but the deep wellsprings of meaning that give that information its power. When we truly understand a concept, we grasp not just its surface features, but the fundamental human needs and experiences that gave rise to it. Consider how a child learns to comprehend complex ideas like trust or fairness or courage. They aren't just definitions to be memorized. They're lived experiences that resonate with our deepest motivations and desires. We understand fairness because we've felt the sting of injustice. We grasp courage because we've faced our own fears. Each concept is anchored not in abstract knowledge, but in the rich soil of human experience and motivation. This reveals something profound about the nature of intelligence itself. True understanding isn't just about processing information. It's about connecting that information to the core motivations that make it meaningful. As we work to create artificial general intelligence, we must recognize that genuine comprehension requires more than sophisticated pattern matching. It requires systems that can align with and understand the fundamental human drives that give our concepts their meaning and their power. Have you ever witnessed a disagreement between two people who simply aren't on the same wavelength? Take, for example, an artist explaining to her producer why a certain merchandising choice might clash with her vision. Or consider someone born into wealth trying to grasp the views of a person who's faced poverty. The differences in their motivations can create a real barrier to understanding one another. After a series of frustrated attempts to explain, you might hear one of them say, "I don't think you really get what I'm trying to say." In contrast, when two people share their similar motivations, their conversations often sparkle with phrases like, "You totally get what I mean." To truly grasp the same meaning behind a concept, both individuals need to connect through that common motivation, even if it's just for the duration of their conversation. Beyond using words, the two may show that they understand the same meaning through their actions. You know, those little moments that speak louder than any explanation. It's like when you're shivering in your friend's apartment and they immediately get up to adjust the thermostat without having to spell it all out to you. They didn't just process the words, "I'm freezing." They connected with your underlying need to be warm and comfortable. This happens in creative partnerships too, like when a musician adds exactly the right bridge to your half-formed melody, somehow tapping into what you were feeling, even when you couldn't fully articulate it yourself. These actions reveal a shared understanding that goes far beyond language. They show that both people are aligned in their goals and motivations, even if just temporarily. When somebody truly gets what you mean, they don't just echo your words back to you. They respond in ways that actually address your deeper needs, proving that real understanding happens when we connect on that fundamental human level. When you share your artistic vision with another person, how do you know that they really got what you were trying to say? It's pretty simple, actually. You see it in the way they create with you. If a fellow musician hears your half-formed melody and adds exactly that right bridge that makes your heart swell, you know that they understood. They somehow tapped into what you were feeling, even if you couldn't fully articulate it yourself. They shared your creative motivation, even if just for that magical moment in the studio. The same goes for any collaboration. So my friend and I used to write stories together, and there were these perfect moments when he'd pick up on a thread that I'd left dangling and then weave it into something that I could never have imagined, but that felt absolutely right. That's when I knew that we were actually speaking the same language. For an artificial intelligence to be a true creative partner, it needs that same ability. It needs to somehow experience what drives you to create in the first place. That flutter in your chest when you think about capturing that perfect sunset. The knot in your throat when you try to express what your grandfather's hands looked like after 50 years of carpentry. If it can't feel something like those drives, how would it ever know what it's helping you create is hitting the mark or totally missing the point? When you sit down with your AI creative partner and say, "Help me write a poem about loss," you're not just asking for words that rhymed or follow a certain structure. You're hoping that somehow, through that simple request, something will emerge that captures what loss feels like to you. And for the AI to help you get there, it has to understand the motivation behind your request, the actual human experience that you're trying to express through art. What this means is that we would need to create AI systems that don't just recognize our words, but actually experience something like our fundamental motivations. Now think about it. We humans aren't just logical machines processing information. We have these deep drives pushing us forward, making us care about things, making us frustrated when we can't get something right. To build an AI that truly understands us, we'd need to engineer systems with something like simulated motivations, not just programming them to recognize what words mean, but building in those fundamental tensions that need resolution. We need to create AI that can feel something like frustration when it can't solve a problem or satisfaction when it finally gets something right. Just like how we develop aversions to things that cause us pain or embarrassment, maybe our AI systems need to develop their own versions of likes and dislikes, not randomly, but through experiencing situations where they succeed or fail. Remember how we learned to dislike public speaking after a few embarrassing attempts, or how we figured out that maybe crossing an intersection when traffic is backed up isn't such a great idea after getting honked at? Our AI would need similar learning mechanisms. We would probably start by giving AI some basic built-in motivations, like how we're born with aversions to pain and hunger. This is reinforcement learning, basically. We then need to design systems that let these motivations branch out and develop over time as the AI encounters situations that it can or can't handle. When the AI repeatedly fails at something despite its best efforts, it should develop an aversion to those situations, just like we do. And just like how we develop skills to overcome our fears, like preparing for a speech to overcome stage fright, our AI would need to develop its own exceptions to the rule. It would need to learn when a situation usually leads to failure, might actually succeed with the right approach. I think we do this by creating neural networks that model not just language patterns, but emotional states and motivational drives. We might use reinforcement learning where the AI experiences something like frustration, and when it repeatedly fails at a task, or feels satisfaction when it succeeds. Over time, these simulated emotional states would shape how the AI approaches problems, just like our emotions shape our problem solving. The hard part, obviously, is figuring out how to program something like emotions or drives in the first place. But maybe we could start by modeling the physical signs of emotions: increased processing when stressed, different patterns of attention when frustrated, and then we could build from there. The goal wouldn't be to make AI that's exactly like us, but AI that has enough in common with our motivational structure that it could truly understand what we mean when we ask about our hopes, our fears, and our creative visions. So last summer, I flew back to my grandmother's house to help her move some of her paintings from her studio. She's getting older now, and her hands aren't quite as steady as they used to be. We were carefully wrapping this massive canvas when I noticed an unfinished painting tucked away in the corner. It was just the beginnings of something. Faint pencil lines and a few bold strokes of color. It didn't seem to connect to anything yet. I asked her what that one was about. What it wants to be? You decide that, she said. The best art happens when the painting tells me what it needs to become. Sometimes I start with one idea, but then the work itself pulls me in another direction entirely, she told me. And it hit me then. This is exactly what I'd been trying to articulate about AI and creativity. My grandmother wasn't just imposing her vision on a blank canvas. She was engaged in this back and forth dialogue with her materials, with her own subconscious, and with the artistic talents that she'd inherited and developed over her entire life. The meaning emerged from that conversation. I thought about all those hours I'd spent in her studio as a kid, watching her step back from a canvas, kind of tilt her head, and then make some small adjustments that somehow transformed the entire piece. She wasn't following an algorithm. She was responding something that she felt rather than she calculated. As I navigate this fascinating intersection between AI and creativity in my work, I keep coming back to that unfinished painting in my grandmother's studio. I wonder if we'll ever create AI systems that can truly engage in this kind of conversation. Not just generating outputs based on inputs, but guiding the process of discovery that makes art have its meaning. Perhaps the real magic of creativity isn't in the finished product, but in that space of not knowing, of reaching for something that you can feel but can't yet see. And maybe that's what we're really looking for in an AI creative partner, not just something that can mimic what we can make or copy the patterns of human creativity, but something that can join us in that beautiful and uncertain space where meaning emerges from the conversation between what we think we're making and what it's becoming. That's the direction worth exploring, an AI that doesn't just create, collaborates in the truest sense of the word.